tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please remember to drop a sub, drop a like, and leave your thoughts down below in the comments. With that, we will see you guys in the podcast. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to be here.
Let's go.
Dude, I feel like it wasn't that long ago when we last talked, but I was looking back, I think it's like 14 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, I know I was in my last job before this. It was probably like around the winter time-ish. Yeah.
No, before that, we put one out. I think, see, look how I'm working the shameless plug into this. The last episode that you should also go listen to is, uh, where did it go? Oh, damn, it was April.
April. Oh, damn. Okay. Not too long ago. 5 months.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. But I feel like in the podcast world, I was like about to hit you, and I was like, it's only been episode like it was like late 50s, and then like before I knew it, we were on late 70s, and I was like, oh, it's time to get him back.
Hey, yeah. Well, I guess it happens quick, right? If you get a lot of people lined up and knock them out.
Yeah, for sure. That's the hardest thing. It like comes in like ebbs and flows because like when you get a lot of people lined up, like you don't want to book too far out because then if you talk about something current and then you release it like a month later, then nobody cares anymore. But
Right.
also by the same token, you can like pick and choose the ones where it's like me and you can go, I can like release it a month later because we'll just talk about whatever.
Yeah.
But like for example, like the international relations guy, like that had to go out like that week
This app.
because he
Yeah.
was talking about the current events in Ukraine and all the other stuff. So
Yeah.
it's weird, man. And then like you get some lined up, and then you're like, oh, I don't have to message anyone anymore. And then before you know it, you're like, fuck, I don't have anybody anymore.
Dude, that's the business. I mean, that's the job. It's what you get yourself into.
Yeah, it's not bad though. I don't mind it. I like it.
Yeah.
We also got our first like subscriber on Anchor,
Wait,
so
that's sick.
that's sick. So it's kind of like Patreon or Twitch, I guess. First sub. That's sick.
Nice.
Doing
That
big
is
things,
awesome.
man. Doing big things. It's been weird. I don't know. We take it. We move.
Yeah, growth is growth, dude. You can't get to, 1,000 before you get to one.
Yeah.
So,
But it takes so long to get to like I don't know if you noticed this when you were doing TikTok, but the growth has been like nothing, 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 and then like all of a sudden, like I've got like a third of the plays, like total plays in the podcast in the last like 2.5 months. And I've been doing this for like 2+ years now.
dude, that is literally every social platform. You know what? That is literally anything that you get success from. That's literally how it happened. Like anything that you get success from over a long period of time, that's just how it all happens. And everything.
Yeah, it has
That's-
to. Because
Yeah.
like it starts to compound. And like it's so hard to start something. And then what yeah, dude. There you go. And so it because and then once you get the ball rolling and once you get your little network like worked up and you get things like in an efficient way where you're not struggling for every like little thing,
Yeah.
then it starts to like compound on itself and it just makes it easier. It's cool. The patience though is like bonkers. For a while, like probably about 6 months ago, when we talked actually, I was like not considering stopping, but like also I was like, I've been doing this for 2 years and I've gotten basically nothing out of it except for like I've learned a lot, but I've gotten nothing quantifiable out of it. It's like,
Right.
what am I doing? But the numbers go up and it gets you motivated to do more.
Yeah, man. There's a book. You know who Ed Milet is?
I don't.
He's just a motivational speaker. I mean, he's got so much money. Like he's a really great person, I think, from what I've seen. But he has a book called The Power of One More. And just in the book, he says, and this I guess might be a little tougher for you, but he talks about obviously you have your big goals, but you want to have big goals as well as like kind of move the needle goals. Like you want to be able to quantify the little things you do well because of
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're saying. Like if all you're focused on is achieving the big goal and you don't give yourself or let yourself get any credit for the little stuff on the way. It's like hard because I get it. Like even when you're saying like you got your first subscriber and that's awesome, but it's even when over this whole period of time you've been at zero, it's like trying to find other ways to like quantify your success other than just like subscribers because your big goal might be 100 subscribers, but it's like there's other ways to like be happy with what you've been doing too. So I know it's tough.
Yeah, 100%. It's just how you look at it, right? Like one of the other things that all the big people say is like, if you get into this to make money, like you're not gonna go anywhere. And so I had always been like, I'm just doing. I enjoy doing it, but it was getting to a point where it was like getting to be almost like a time sink.
Yeah.
Um, but also not. It's like I enjoy this personally, but like you're planning a wedding. It's like, all right, so now what? Like, where's the priorities lie?
Mm,
And then that's where you get to time management. But if you're, I don't know. I was never in it for, I didn't start this for money because if I did, like, I would have been looking at all like the how to beat YouTube books and like all these things. And like,
yeah.
I just want to talk to people. Like, if people like it, that's great. And if people don't, then
Yeah, man,
they don't.
you've had that stance since our first episode. That I remember I feel like I remember you saying the same kind of thing literally the first time we talked, which is over a year ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's like you can't even think about it really. Because if you start thinking about like, oh, what if I get this one more subscriber? If I get this one more view, then I'll hit 100. Like you just gotta like not. You just gotta go and not
Yeah.
worry about that stuff. Because when you start to worry about that stuff, then you start like deleting and reposting and like doing stuff that isn't helpful for mental health. Also, because like
Yeah.
if you like are worried like because nobody knows why some stuff does well and some stuff doesn't. Like you can't tell.
Dude, yeah, there's no science to it. Everybody talks about it. Like there's like 8 gazillion YouTube videos out there about every algorithm on all the social media platforms. But I agree with you. Like there's I'm sure like certain guidelines to follow to like have success, but it's so like I think it's mostly just BS what people say about you should post at this time or you should post this length or you should I mean maybe length for the instant gratification. Everybody wants to have shorter content nowadays, but for the most part, yeah, I think that there is not a ton of like concrete info about what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. The only one who really did it, I think, was like Mr. Beast.
I was thinking, yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
let's say Mr. Beast.
But there's a reason why he's that. Like he spent a just a stupid amount. Like that's all he did for like 12 hours a day
Yeah,
for
I saw, yeah,
10
the
years.
interviews he's had. Yeah,
And it's kind of like when I was talking with Kevin a couple episodes ago, he's a video game designer, and he was saying like, well, is that good to have that like hyper competitive drive in people? And I was like, well, there's both ways, right? Like you don't want like the people at the top are the way they are because they have it, but then it's not good for like people who are don't have the talent to get there. And so it's like you don't really want to tell people to not be that way because then you're like telling people, no, you're never gonna make it. Like you don't want to tell people that, but also like to have some regular guy be like the worst loser in the world, and then because he's a regular guy and he loses all the time, just be like an absolute like prick to be around. Like you don't want that either. It's always weird. I don't know. Life is weird.
yeah. There's so many different avenues you can go down on any topic. I hear you.
It's almost like who was I talking to the other day? I don't remember. Maybe it was I don't know. Basically, I was like, all the problems in the world are so compounded now, but like because there's so many variables where it was like before because of the internet, basically. It's like there's so many variables now. Like you look at dating or finding a job or like the possibilities are infinite, but also then it makes people want to like seek out the best of the best. And so like that middle group just kind of gets left
Well,
ish.
You make a great point in that there are like endless opportunities. It's honestly a problem
Hmm.
because we become scared to choose any path because we're
Exactly.
not sure it's the best one. Um, but I think I heard Gary Vee like say this kind of thing, and it's something that I've been trying to check myself for recently. Like your own personal happiness. The problem is, I think we get away from like our own personal happiness, and what I mean is like with the internet, with every all the different things that go on, and all the different influences we have these days. Like it's too easy to have like your judgment clouded by just everything that there is. Garrett, basically back to what Gary Vee was saying, he was like, I have friends that I met like playing beer league softball. They make 60K a year, and they're the happiest guys I've ever met. And
Yeah.
it's like you have like I think that's where the true like purpose in life is, because it involves a lot of we got to do a lot of digging because there's so many things that like I feel like if your actual inner happiness is here, there's so many things that are on top of it that like they disguise themselves as happiness, but really they're instant gratification, or they're you trying to fill a void in yourself from somebody else and their approval, or like things like that. And I think it's great the internet kind of can shine a light on that because you see other people's experiences, and you see some of the really wise people out there that talk about these things. But then at the same time, it's like, oh wow, that was like a beautiful piece of psychological information. Let me scroll to the next reel and like see like a cat or some shit. Like it's
A cat jump out of the way of a cucumber.
yeah, literally just like insanity. So it's yeah,
But I think even to your point of like scrolling to the next one is like we still remember that piece of advice, even if we keep scrolling.
yeah.
Like we're gonna scroll because that's how it goes. But
Mhm.
then that's something that we like have remembered. I feel like this could be totally off base because I've not talked to anybody who's like older about this, but I feel like the the younger generation who is taking in kind of the Gary V's of the world and like
Mhm.
the Rogans and like all these people that have been super successful who are just putting their advice out there. It's free advice. Like I think like 30 years ago, if you wanted to talk to somebody that's successful, you'd have to either get so lucky or like you would never hear anything from them except maybe an interview here or there. But these people are just putting what worked for them, what didn't work for them. Like it's free advice that's just
Yeah.
out there to consume. And like if you find the right ones, like there's you know who Anthony Pompliano is?
Sounds familiar.
He's like a crypto guy, but like, and you don't have to be into crypto, but like he's super big into Bitcoin. And if you want to learn about Bitcoin, you can go talk, like, listen to this guy hours and hours and hours of content, right? Gary Vee, the most sales oriented person that's ever lived on the face of the earth, right? You want to learn how to make it in sales, him. Like even Mark Cuban has gone on podcasts and talked about what works for him and what doesn't work for him. Like these people that we would never have had access to, like however long ago, like they're on enough podcasts where somebody is going to have asked them the question that you would have wanted to ask them, and you just got to find it. Now, I think that's something that, like in the click culture, the instant gratification culture, like there's that long form content that exists that people are putting out there, and people just have to go find it. It's like I don't know. What do you think about what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I mean, I completely agree, but it is just a two-edged sword. I mean, like anything, and I guess that's kind of the problem. And I mean, I look at myself in the mirror like saying this. There is great content, but there's also just like an insane amount of like crappy content.
Of course.
And I guess what I mean, like if we get back to the scrolling analogy, ideally, we're listening to the long form stuff, the podcasts of the inspirational people that can we can learn a ton from. And like I like to think that I'm continuing to push towards only absorbing as much of that as I can. And I've been off TikTok for a while. Like I don't have the app. It's just I can't. But just absorbing as much of the long form content from very inspirational people as possible, and then like limiting in the. Have you read The Compound Effect?
I've not.
That's the book I just held up, but it's a great book. But he makes an analogy that's garbage in, garbage out. Like in your life, in any form, and social media is a great example. When you input garbage into your mind, which is it's crap. So the freaking vast majority is junk. Like I'm really starting to realize and like take a stand on that it's there's just so much crap on social media, and when you're absorbing mostly that and then the occasional like I'm saying the 15 to 30-second psychological like reel, it's not it will have an effect. And just like you're saying, there's something to be said for just the access to that, that 30 years ago they didn't have even the access to that 15 to 30-second clip. But I think it's important, like for true improvement and development as a person, you really have to adjust what you're bringing in, and then change your social media kind of what's the word
Intake, consumption.
intake, consumption habits. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree for sure. That's like I think we talked about this last time, or maybe the time before. It's like even though you and I produce content, right? Your reels are hilarious, and there's a certain amount of truth to all of them, though. That's kind of what makes it funny. All right, that is what makes it funny. It's like there's a certain amount of truth to to what you're putting out, and you and I don't put out similar forms of content, but we're on those platforms, but we don't really consume that much. Like
Yeah.
like I consume long form stuff, and
Mhm.
it's often when I'm driving somewhere or like doing something else.
I see.
And it's really weird. We definitely touched on this last time, but it's really weird that those who are producing content like are just like, nope, gonna be go do other things. Like I'm not gonna scroll. As hard as
Well,
that is,
yeah, yeah,
it's like we know that it's like we know inherently, like by accident, the dangers of it.
yeah, man. That you make a phenomenal point. I'm glad you say that because sometimes I'm unsure. I'm like, okay, like I'm making this stuff, but am I like am I the only one who makes it but then doesn't really watch it all? I don't scroll through because my thing now is Instagram Reels. Like that's really what I for my realtor page, it's what I consistently post. I never scroll through Reels. I never watch Reels. Like if someone sends me one, I'll look at it, but I'm never like sitting there like scrolling through. Like maybe I'll even go at the very oh no, I don't even do that. I was gonna say maybe I'll go on like the NFL page and like look through highlights, but I don't even do that.
No.
It's just, yeah, man, you made a great point, and I think maybe part of the reason is, okay, to be successful, like with any kind of media, you
Hmm.
really consistency is the key. Talked about that before. I think we talked about that in the last episode, but or maybe two, whatever. But consistency is the key. To be like truly consistent in something like we're saying that you have to put in the work for a long period of time and not see the outcome, basically not get the instant gratification. What does that say about you? That means you are not as affected or like what I guess you don't crave that instant gratification type content as much
Hmm.
because obviously you're making a whole whatever venture, whether it's your podcast or for me, my real estate career, out of you're doing something that's very long term
Hmm.
and you're not going to get the quote unquote gratification from it for a while, and when you kind of get that taste like for that, like when you kind of harden yourself to that and become like, okay, I'm cool. I'm rocking and rolling. I'm still going to keep pumping out episodes, stuff like that. I think that changes your taste in content consumption too. Like, yeah, I don't need the instant gratification from reels. I would rather listen to a longer piece of inspirational content from somebody that I really admire, not
Yeah.
to, watch reels like that. And I think you can say that about a lot of influencers and stuff because as much as even if their content isn't as much in alignment with like ours, like there is no truth to it, maybe it's just straight comedy or it's just a gaming, I don't know. They still have like a level of consistency with what they do, and they don't necessarily need that instant gratification.
Yeah. It's almost like a yeah, 100%. And I've noticed that about myself, the content that I can consume from, I'll say like 4 or 5 years ago to now. Um, it's changed a lot, but also not really. Like I got started to get into podcasts and long form content like 4 or 5 years ago, but now I've settled on like a handful of like, do you know Lex Friedman?
Who?
Lex Friedman.
I've definitely, is that an author?
He's a Probably he's written a book. He's a AI scientist at MIT, AI and
Yeah.
robotics scientist.
I feel like that name Friedman sounds like a very familiar name to me.
Yeah, he's been
Sure.
on Rogan a bunch of times, but his guests are not all sciencey people. He just wants to talk to people and explore the world. And but he doesn't have a like a lot of those now have like a he doesn't really get caught up in, I'll say, like the culture wars the same way a lot of the other people do, and I got tired of that, so I shifted off. Like Rogan is in it just because people bring him into it, but like he doesn't really want to be in it either. And like we talked about before, I don't really listen to him for him. Like once you listen to 5 of his episodes, you know where he is on like most things, which is basically like leave people alone and let them smoke weed. like if you really boil it down, like that's kind of where he is. It's basically just like leave people alone. Um, but I listen to him for his ability to interview because he gets information out of, and we talked about this before as well. He gets information out of really cool people. So those are the two that I've kind of like settled on, and it's just the stories of the people that they have on, what they're
Yeah.
interested in, how they worked towards the different things, what hurdles they had to cross. And since they're like super long conversations, they'll touch on like a variety of things. But it's not like if you go to like a Hassan Piker podcast or like a Tim Pool, like both on opposite sides of the spectrum, but like it's just
Yeah,
constant
I've
like
seen a little bit of Hassan Piker.
yeah, but it's just
I've just
constant
seen,
it's just constant like this guy on the other side said this and that guy on the other side said that, and it's just like I don't care anymore. I don't care.
yeah.
So that's shifted for me a lot um as I've been doing this. I don't know. It's also interesting you brought up real estate and like the work without the growth because I'm
Yeah,
about to
man.
I'm about to jump into that. I've been taking a class and stuff, and um I fully expect that to be the same. And so the podcast was almost like a nice little like learning dry run almost.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, it is. I mean, what's interesting about real estate, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff about real estate, but the more that I'm in it and the more I can be around people who've been in it a long time and talk to, I've been really lucky just to be around the people that I've been around. But it's just not as cut and dry as like at all, I guess, as not you, but I thought of it before I got in the business, as I think anybody thinks about it before they get in the business. Like people talk about selling and buying houses, but one thing about real estate is like I quickly learned experience pretty much any agent you don't say selling and buying houses, you just say making deals because they come in so many different forms and shapes, and there's different things you have to add on and subtract and take account for. There's different types of people. They're buying cash. They're buying. They're financing. They're gonna give you. They're gonna take some money off because you're gonna give them this couch. Like it. There's a million different things that just go into it. So it's very interesting field for sure, and I think it's a lot different than in it than it is when you're just kind of on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think a lot of it'll come down to, well, this is most jobs really, but I was on the phone with somebody today um and he was asking me questions about like how I dealt with certain situations at work. And like really it comes down to like communication and do you trust the people? Do the people trust you? Are they gonna go to bat for you? Because then if like it's just like can you build a relationship that they trust your recommendation or your right? Because you're most of the time you're never making decisions for other people. You never want to make decisions for other people. You want to give them what you recommend, and then if they trust you, then you can give them the here's why and here's why not. And that's what
Yeah.
I think. But you do you.
Mhm.
Like. that and like when you're talking about people financing or buying in cash or like taking this off because they're buying a couch or there's a contingency here or like this thing needs to be fixed and like it's really
Yeah.
just like all right, can both parties come to a reasonable agreement that makes everyone happy because nobody wants to get the lawyers involved because that is just a headache. So it's
Money,
like, can
man. Yeah,
you?
I've been so what's kind of been putting the money, the food on the table, so to speak, because real estate is, it's can be sporadic. I'm
Mhm.
luckily working through my first deal right now. Hopefully, going to close the next like week and a half.
Good luck,
But
bro.
yeah, I'm excited. But um, I was or I've been working as a roofing contractor, and so I've been around insurance a lot, and it is just it's wild. It's a wild field, man. Insurance and real estate and all that stuff. But it's good to be in it because it's just so like universal. Everybody uses this stuff. Everybody ought to know like a good bit about it.
Yeah, it's strange that people don't know some of the things like some of the stuff like when you're going through the class, you're like that'd have been good to know, and
Yeah.
like they just don't tell people these things. And like I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I remember two or three distinct times being like, why does no one tell people this stuff? Like I don't
I
know.
mean, bro, for one thing, it's just in one ear and out the other. I mean, with life and the day-to-day life of everybody, people just they'll choose to care what they want to care to know about, you know.
Well, yeah, but it's like the personal finance stuff in school, or like you don't learn how to do taxes in school.
Yeah, kind of
So I don't
crazy.
know. How long before when you, because you were working at the restaurant, right? Last time we talked.
Yeah, yeah,
So how long before you quit that and you're about to close?
yeah. So I got my license. I actually just saw this today.
Or yeah,
'Cause I
how
was,
long
I
between
was,
your license and first deal?
yeah, I got my license on May 1st
Mm-hmm.
was the day exactly, and I think we our offer got accepted like 2 weeks ago, like August 28th or so.
Mm-hmm.
So May 1st to August 28th is that's like three months, about 4 months,
Yeah.
almost 4 months exactly. So I think that's pretty good because I don't know. One thing that I'm definitely working on is just not basing my achievements on like if other people did it better or worse. Like comparatively, 4 months is like good that like if you're able to get your first deal within that amount of time. Some people don't get a deal in their first year. Like I think it just as much though has to do with I got on with a really good brokerage. I got a great mentor and like just was able to hit the ground running basically. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's so important for so many people because getting my license in Virginia, because I don't know if you knew that I got my license in Virginia as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, so when I got it there, all love to my dad and his brokerage and stuff. So that's real estate agent too. They didn't train me for squat, man. They didn't train me at all. My dad was like a good mentor, but he didn't really understand like starting out as a new agent because when he got into the business, he already had a bunch of people around his age that he was like in his like 40s. So
Yeah.
everybody already that he knew like had money and was probably he had just people to go with off the bat. But for me, A, living in a place I've only been in for a year, and
Yeah.
B, being 23 years old now, nobody had money, no one has money to buy a house that I know. So it's just
No.
been like straight. And I never learned in that first brokerage how to really lead generate and prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to learn that here and just like go ham at it, it's worked out.
Yeah. So does the brokerage help you with the lead generation? Because that's the part that for me is most, I wouldn't say worrisome, but also like is at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I guess I break it down in a few steps because this is like what I have found works really well, like just to succeed as an agent. Because let me give you an interesting nugget, right? So
Sure.
if you're listening, I want you to tune in on this one, okay? Especially if you're thinking about getting into real estate at all. Real estate agents get to make their own schedule, right? That's what everybody says. So exciting. Real estate agent. Oh man, make your own schedule, live a free life. Real estate agents still work the same 80 hours as everybody else. They just get to choose when those 80 hours are. And yes, I said 80 hours because it's not it ain't like well, I'm gonna be real. I don't work 80 hours, but that's just the way I heard the quote. But yeah, so when it comes to real estate, like you can't just say it's so awesome. I get to make my own schedule and then make your own schedule for 20 hours a week. You got to
Yeah.
work it. Like, look, the beauty and the fun of it is that, yeah, you can work 30 of your 40 hours in your freaking house in your pajamas. Like, yeah, it's cool, but like you still have to do the thing. So that's the first. The first point is it's still a job, like a job. Like you got to put in the hours to succeed. It goes with anything. You have to put in the hours if you want to, be successful at it. Number two, and there's a book I would suggest to you just starting out. It's called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent,
The
and
Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
yeah, by
Let me
Gary
Google that
Keller.
real quick.
Gary Keller, as in Keller Williams,
Okay. Keep going.
and yeah, so what he talks about in the book, and you might have heard this just as a general statement before, proven repeatable systems. And those are so huge, and especially lead generation, because by creating systems for yourself that you can just repeat each day, that will they're what we call them, or at least what I've heard a lot of people when I call them, by doing money making activities, because that's what's so interesting about a job like this. Your what you do does not directly correlate to money. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
when you work a 9 to 5 and doing the things at the job equals working your hours and making your money. Like, nah, you could wake up one day and do nothing. And then you could wake up the next day and work for an hour. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just putting in enough money making hours of money making activities each day to then like net a result down the line. And so then the third point, last point, everybody kind of finds what works for them. For me, what I guess I've always been doing since I started was open houses. Did
Yeah.
one every weekend basically. I've had a couple weekends I've missed them, but I've tried to do one every single weekend. And then lately, so what I did, and depending on your brokerage, you might have this. Mine definitely does, but we have a leads team. We have a few leads teams, and I got on one. And essentially, what that works is the person who runs the leads team buys leads for the team. And there's any number of ways you can buy leads, but for us, we just have a website and that we pay for, and then when we pay for like traffic to be generated there, and then we get leads from that. People register, hey, I'm looking for a house, blah blah blah, and the leads team gets a cut of your commission. So it's like for us,
Mm-hmm.
it's a nice system because I don't have to pay for the leads up front. When I get a commission, they get a cut of it, but especially for a new agent that
You still
doesn't.
made yours.
Exactly, exactly. So, um, for me, the big ones right now is obviously social media, and then cold calling and open houses. And I just, by repeating those systems every day, build a pipeline, and just continue to succeed.
Yeah, very nice. The point you make about still putting in the hours is so true. I think a lot of people don't consider it, but for me, that's the part that's most exciting about getting out of the 9 to 5
Yeah,
is the like I want to do the work, but I want to do the work in a way that like is efficient, right? Like I don't like I had a situation with a customer recently where this document went through and they decided that the format needed to be changed from like there's basically a bunch of like memos, different types of memos,
mm,
and they decided that it needed to get changed from one to the other. And really the only change that needed to get made was like two of the sections needed to get switched around and like the signature blocks, like one signature block needed to get added. But like, right, this is a trivial change in the practicality. Like the document still says the exact same thing. Guess how long it took before that document got approved and then not signed? It's been 8 months, and it's a 3 page document, right? So like when like the inefficiencies of like I can be efficient on my own time and I can work when I want to work. Like I want to do the work. Like it's most frustrating when I do the work and then there's nothing to do because people are squabbling. Like that's annoying.
yeah,
So that's one of the things that is appealing to me, and obviously that will never completely go away
yeah,
because people will be like, well, we don't know if we want that house, or we don't know if we want this house, or like, well, this one has this sink, but that one doesn't have like that will never ever go away. But also you can have like a direct like influence on that. rather than in other situations where you cannot.
Exactly. Exactly, man. I think that's beautifully put. That's the whole thing. And I tell you, I'll just keep it a buck. I'm gonna keep it a buck here. If you work in a 9 to 5 like this, and I'm talking to you, then I apologize. But like, th- I think that's where you start getting into, people who just bitch and complain all the time about like their job, you know? And it's so interesting to me because I look at that and it's like, then why are you there?
Yeah.
It's people, and I mean, I guess I used to be like this, but they will they will choose to complain and be angry about their career before considering just changing it. Like, obviously you like aren't happy being there, but then you can get in the psychology of it. It's like it becomes comfortable. Yeah, you hate it, but it's comfortable because it's all you've ever done. But it's like, yeah, dude, exactly what you're saying. When you are in these positions, whatever it may be, there's so many situations where you're sitting there, like, and ideally, this is what breaks you out of it. And you're like, wait a second, I don't have to do this. And you're like, man, why am I doing all this work? Why are we going 8 months for a 3-page document? Like,
Yeah.
what the heck is this? Exactly what you're saying. Because yeah, man, like, you're right, it won't ever go away, but it is much easier to deal with when it's something you have a direct influence on,
Yeah.
like you're
When
saying,
it's when it's just you.
Yeah.
I'll caveat the thing of like, why are you still there? When people get older and they have kids and they need the stable paycheck, like, it's way difficult to change. Like, I was talking to one of my coworkers about this the other day. He was like, I wish I had done that before I had my kid, but now I can't because my wife's doing this and I have to, like, right, we need, like, this is good income and I don't have the right, those 4 months before you switched and you saved and you got your first deal, like, that for a lot of people, like, you got two kids and you're like 35 and you got your mortgage and stuff, like, you can't afford those 4 months of not getting paid. And so there's that issue, especially, right, everybody knows cost of living is going up, like, food is expensive as hell, gas is expensive as hell, like, it's tough. It's tough. And there's a lot of people that, to go back to like the financial literacy point that I made earlier, like, there's a lot of people that are either still in student loan debt or like didn't have the guidance or like structure to be able to like save up. Like, for me, I planned for this. Like, I've got enough saved up, and like, yeah, it sucks that it's coming at a point where um like, the wedding's happening and the wedding's expensive, but like, I'm prepared financially for this. You know what I mean? And so there's lots of people that like can't, right? Like, for example, I know somebody else that like wanted to kind of switch and then got in a car accident. Insurance is being a pain. They're not paying for his medical bills, which are like upwards of, in
Insane, bro.
in like close to six figures. And so he's fighting on that. Um, and then his kid is like going to do this thing, and then he's got to pay for daycare, and then like the work, so it's like, there, it's not an option, like, there's no options there. And so that's the part that like, it like, I don't know, people are just in, I don't know, there's a lot of people that are really struggling. Like, I feel super blessed to be able to, like, that I've put myself in the position to be prepared to kind of switch.
Mhm.
And you did the same. Like, you were blessed enough to be able to be in a position where you could try a bunch of things, and then now you're finding your niche, and it's like, but we were lucky in a sense, but also we're making the most of it. So there's that too. So it's not like we're just doing whatever, right there. Like, there's the people that were like us that are chilling in their 9 to 5 and they're not happy, and then there's the other people that like can't, and that, like, it's important to make that distinction because, well, when you're like, I will apologize to those people, it's like some of those people would be like, fuck you, dude. Like, you don't understand what it's like to be me, not
Yeah.
me, but not me,
Yeah,
but
man.
you know what I
No, I
mean.
hear what you're saying, and I don't want to, speak to everybody's situation, but I think,
I know what you mean, though. I
yeah,
also agree.
there's always something to be said. Like, if you're always just unhappy with any aspect of your life, I think it's important to really get into that questioning,
Hmm.
because it's too many cases, and I've I've seen it with a lot of people. And again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but just people who are frustrated with things in their life, but the true effort to change them is not there,
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just important. Now, again, just like you're saying, some people can be backed into corners, they're in tough spots, but it's important to evaluate.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I just felt like it was important to add that in there because lots of people are going through it at the moment. But yeah, I totally agree. I genuinely agree. I have this gripe with like so many people. It's like why are you complaining if you can change it? It's like when it's like in my top like five pet peeves.
Maybe that's honestly what there is to rephrase is like the people who can change it, like do it, not
Yeah,
necessarily the ones that are with
yeah,
kids or just like you're
yeah.
saying, like that medical bills, man, they can just get absolutely insane. But if you can, I mean, before you get locked into a situation like that,
Exactly,
you should
exactly,
make the change.
exactly. You gotta have that deep think about yourself. And I think that was one of the things, and I think you spoke to this before, but you gotta look yourself in the mirror and be like, all right, something like I gotta change this, I gotta tweak this. Like there are things that are wrong, and like that's a difficult conversation to have with yourself. And like for me, I'm super blessed that I have a partner that is like will not like she'll be honest and then but honest but not mean about it. And so and then support you and like she'll support me in trying to fix those things. And so
It's beautiful.
like I'm blessed with that for sure. But that's like a super difficult conversation to have with yourself. And it's
We're
also
all,
not fun. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, having access to the people, like that's how I was like, all right, I'm gonna have this conversation with myself because no one wants to do that. No one's like, let me go hate myself today. Like, like that's not something you wake up and you want to do.
yeah.
But also, I don't know. I think you spoke to that last episode, or maybe it was the one before that you had done that as well at some point.
Yeah, man. It's I feel like I guess I say COVID was a time that I really reflected a lot on things. I feel like growing up, man, in college especially, like I think, dude, there have been so many changes even since our first episode to now,
Hmm.
like
Yeah, I
just
agree.
first episode specifically, because I had a big issue with sexual anxiety. I fought through that, and when we were at college, I barely got like with any woman, anything like that. It just was like, yeah, I haven't, blessed. I haven't been through any trauma or anything like that, but like I just really got in my own head over that kind of thing, and it really was a source of like unconfidence. And there have been just a lot of different eye openers. I feel like the more you grow, like just the more your eyes are they like open wider to life, and that just continues. Like one thing that I've kind of been working with recently, bro, is physical attraction and like realizing like okay, like I'm a conventionally attractive guy. I don't even know what that means because I've heard there's a statistic that's like 80% of whatever the population of the world doesn't think you're attractive, like for every single person, which
Mm,
is so then it's like okay, well what the hell is conventionally attractive anyway? But anyway, I consider myself like conventionally attractive, and then but I was thinking about it and I was
I
like,
would agree.
thanks, bro, I appreciate it. You too, my friend.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
but I was thinking about it and I was like, what does it even matter, truthfully? Like to be good looking, I think and I'm not saying it's all about personality. I think that's not it. But like, what matters more is just the way that you carry yourself. Because most things that come with like conventional attraction, like the whole concept, is kind of just an amalgamation of like you take care of yourself well and you have self-confidence. Like it's the other aspects of you that make you look good. It's not like you looking good that makes the other aspects of you better. You know what I mean? So I was just thinking like that's what there is to look on. I think getting back to the original point, I think I just believed I was naturally good looking, like genetics, blah 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 blah, and I thought that I don't know. I guess I put pressure on myself. I thought it would carry me a certain distance, and I guess I just kind of came to a realization like let's put that by the wayside and just really focus on everything else because that's what makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And
100%.
yeah,
100%. It's I think with guys especially that it works that way. Like until you I'm going to use this phrase because it's a bit accurate, but I don't like using it because it's used by like the fresh and fits of the world.
uh,
The term high value man.
yeah,
Like like fresh and fit, those two idiots like have created something for themselves that works for them. Like that's fine. I don't agree with hardly anything that they say. Maybe except some of the business stuff, like, but that's different. Um.
dude, we could get
Anyway,
into like, I'm been so annoyed with people, dude. What do you think of Andrew Tate? Everybody's fucking asking. Whatever. Anyway, continue.
what I was gonna say though is like that is so much of there's so much more that goes into like people be like, well, I think I'm attractive. Like why doesn't this just work for me? It's like, well, have you taken care of yourself in terms of like even just like haircut and facial hair? Like, is that groomed? Are you like you don't have to be like The Rock, but are you semi in shape? Like if you put on clothes, like nobody's gonna be like, oh, he's fat. Like those sorts of things. And there's also like however people want to live their life, right? But there's a there's in my opinion, there's a value that goes beyond the aesthetic of like how you look, and it's the fact that you've had to put in the effort to take care of yourself, so then you look that way. And I think it goes beyond that. And then it's like, how do you carry yourself? Can you have a conversation? Are you like you don't have to be like Kevin Hart, but can you carry a conversation? And that's also a skill, right? I think people don't realize that that's a skill. Like even for me, like from our first episode to now, I've gotten a lot better at carrying or having the conversation, right? Going where I want to go, asking, crafting a question in a way that I get the information that I'm looking for, not which is different from a leading question, but pinpointing the actual opinion of the person that you want to get out of them, not having it be
Yeah,
misunderstood. Your this is a phrase that comedians use, your economy of words, like how succinct and articulate are you to get to the point that you're trying to get to. Um, increasing your vocabulary, right? Like all of these things that go into
mm,
like you as a person, and then you see it in yourself. You're like, oh, I used the word succinct today. Like that's cool. Or like, oh, I lifted a bit more than I did last week. That's cool. And all of those things kind of aggregate into you as you, and then once you find that kind of security in yourself, then you're honestly at that point you're kind of chilling. Like even if your security is that you think you look great with a beard and a man bun, as long as like the man bun is shaped up right and like the beard is kind of shaped up and like you're secure in who you are, it doesn't really it does like not that it doesn't matter, but like it's like it's the security in who you are as an individual that is like that creates like then everything else like comes with it, right? Success in real estate. Like if you're secure with who you are, like nobody wants to buy a home with a real estate agent that's like, oh, I don't know about this. Like nobody wants that.
dude, it's interesting you say that just because, yeah, when I was an agent in Virginia, I was just much less confident than I
Yeah,
was then. You know,
yeah, 100%. So, what's your opinion on Andrew Tate?
dude, like, all right, so I truly never absorbed that much content from him because the
Hmm.
way I see it is any of the good stuff that he provides, you can
Hmm.
get from someone who doesn't also have like this just stupidity. Like to me, there have been just enough. I've seen enough like sexist clips of him just saying like really just absurd things that
Yeah,
I it's kind of like you said, like I don't care. You know, as
yeah.
soon as I, to me, to be honest, when someone says some stuff like that, considering like I follow some really beautiful minds to me. Like I've
Hmm.
really seen some people that I just absolutely love what they say. It's positive content. Like I really just I'm hard pressed to like find something negative that they say that I'm like really it really rubs me the wrong way.
Hmm.
And when I see him say just some of the stupidity he says, dude, it just it just lose all credibility, and I just have no
Sure.
reason to watch him at that point. That's
Can I try to poke a hole
please.
slightly? I had this conversation with a very close friend of mine who is a woman, and I'm with you on the stupidity of much of what he says. But I also think, and maybe this doesn't have to apply to him, but I also think that you can take the words that a person says and you can say, yeah, that makes sense. And well, also, like, if you and I are going to have an entire conversation, you can agree with some of the things that I've said and you can disagree with some of the other things that I said. And what my ideas are not me. So I'm not excusing the sexist stuff he says. The point that I'm trying to make is like, if you listen to him on like a businessy type thing, you can still, for your own self, take a nugget of wisdom from that while not liking the rest of what he says. And that can be, I don't know, valid. I don't know. Valid's not the right word. I think the reason why I use him as the example is because I feel so often in our society that we've got to a position where it's like we don't like three things that so and so said, therefore we're going to throw everything else out that they've said. And I don't think that's a good situation to be in generally as like first instinct in society. And I don't know, so that's why I was right, like when you say everything else he says loses all credibility. It's like, okay, sure, but that doesn't like you can not listen to what he says, but if something comes across, um, like if you're scrolling and it's a business one, you don't have to skip it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And it's difficult because especially with somebody like him because he's so inflammatory, and you don't want um like I'll say generally right like not great, but to me, Fresh and Fit are worse than him in my opinion, in terms of the sexist stuff that they say, but nobody's complaining about them. So I don't know, like, in terms
well,
of
they're
like
just
it,
not as popping as him right now.
right?
I've seen like some complaints about Fresh and Fit, but I think just because he like got so viral,
Yeah,
then obviously everybody's got fired. So interesting, man. It's like, yeah, there's so many people that could be canceled. They're just not like famous enough. You know what I mean?
yeah. But you know what I'm saying though, because
Yeah.
I want to make that distinction because I don't want this to come off as like Andrew Tate's an amazing person because that's not what it's supposed to be. It's using him as an example for how we deal with figures in society now.
Yeah.
Thoughts,
You-
questions, comments, concerns.
No, I mean it makes sense. I guess, on one hand, I've kind of looked at it under the scope of I truly just don't care to like watch his content for that reason.
Sure.
But to your point of saying like if I'm just scrolling, why just I might be missing out on like something actually good that he has to say. I hear what you're saying. I hear what
It
you're
well,
saying.
it's not even that. That's a very simplistic way, but it's like, um, let me try and it was a bad example. Um,
Well, I guess let me just throw this out there.
sure,
So kind of the point to like what I'm saying is I feel like why it's hard to find a good example in this case because like I'm just not because of those things I don't agree with, which I feel like strongly enough about that like the inflammatory stuff that he said, I feel like I disagree with enough that like it makes me not want to see the rest of his content. And so in that case, I guess that's kind of like the weird balance. I don't want to just say I'm throwing away, his content, but it's like it makes me not care to like want to listen to it. And it's like,
Sure.
okay, when else would I encounter it, you know?
Yeah, I'm not saying that you have to go seek it out
Yeah.
either.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying a and I'll throw this out, and I did it this way on purpose. I listened to three of his interviews the whole way through. One with just a guy, one with just a woman, and one with a man and a woman together. I did it that way on
Mhm.
purpose.
Interesting.
The one with a man and a woman together is Your Mom's House with Tom Segura and Christina P. So right, they treated everything that he said as a joke, and that made it actually quite funny, to be
Yeah.
honest, because the producers are laughing in the back, and I was like, oh, that's how you should take the ridiculous shit that he says. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't also be
That's true
offensive.
too.
I saw a quote that one time, and this is a very simplistic way, but it was like, "You're offended. I find it funny. That's why I'm happier than you." And that doesn't have to like necessarily apply here, but
Yeah.
I think generally the point of like if you treat him as like a joke, then it almost just makes it like I don't know. I guess I wish more people had the I don't know if wherewithal is the right word. I wish more people had, or I wish more people took the time to sort of figure out a body of work and then determine for themselves before throwing something away, if that makes sense. So I guess that's kind of where it was wrapped up. Like, I was like, this guy is saying ridiculous things, but other people are defending him. Let me figure out what is actually going on. So then I watched the interviews with the three sets, like I mentioned, on purpose, right? Because of the clips that I had seen. And I was like, hmm, I don't agree with that, or that. And he's speaking in an inflammatory overgeneralization here. But this point about this seems reasonable. And so I can take that nugget for myself and then throw away the rest in a kind of way that's like I don't know, it's very difficult because some of the stuff that he said I was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Like shut up. Um so yeah, I don't know. But it takes a level of like uh like I
Yeah.
don't have to listen to this guy.
Yeah, man. I think you make you just you're talking about some kind of slightly advanced like awareness stuff, you know, and I think that's great. You have to be able to take, just like you're saying, take what you want to take from interviews, you know, with him, with any kind of figure. If you're interested in seeing what they have to say, it does again, just like you're saying, doesn't mean you have to love the person. Like you can just be, I could watch a Donald Trump interview just because I'm interested to see like what he says. It doesn't mean you have to love him. It just means you're like
Yeah.
interested to see what he says. But you have to kind of have the mental acuity, wherewithal, whatever you want to call it, to be able to say, okay, I don't have to love it all, and I don't have to love the guy. But if he says something that I agree with, you have to be able to separate the identity just from like the concept that
Like
he's
the
saying.
idea from the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think you talked about before. Yeah.
Yeah. And again that I'm using him as the larger example for society, right? You see people on both sides say, "Well, this guy said one thing and so I don't like it anymore." And so I'm not going to listen to anything that they have to say. And it's like,
Mhm.
look at where it has gotten us.
Yeah, you
Nowhere.
make a great point there because then, you know, to be honest with you, I kind of indirectly am like, what's the word, like being a hypocrite to like my political beliefs.
Sure.
For like politically, I think there shouldn't be a party system and people should run on platforms because I think
Yeah.
that just like you're saying, like the party system separates people not because of candidates, but just because of like what party you're in. Like if you're a Republican, um you're pro-life, you hate women and you're racist, and then if you're Democratic, you're like and you think everybody should be able to do whatever they want and like the world, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's just people don't run like people aren't voting on like platforms. Like that's I feel like why we get into these lesser of two evil situations is
Yeah.
because we don't have the opportunity to just like get the best person. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe it's a
Hmm.
Green Party person, but we'll never know because we're voting on parties and not like actual figures.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
Like no people don't vote for the ideas. They vote for like just like the elevator speech of like, all right, pro-choice, gun control, uh
yeah.
whatever. And then the other side it's like gun rights, constitution,
Mhm.
storming the Capitol. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Um uh but yeah, it's like I, to actually I'll dive into this and then we can take it out of politics and wrap it up in a bit. I know it's getting a bit late, but the problems that exist here in this country are you cannot solve them by just having like by only listening to one person or by only like you have people have to expose themselves to ideas that they might not agree with because these problems are so complex that if we're going to get anywhere with anything meaningful, not just like random gesturing like the thing that Biden did for student debt. Like he gave everybody 10K. You know how quick that's going to evaporate when the fact that they just printed 10K off for everybody makes the dollar worth
Yeah.
less, and
Everything
then and then
it
the
costs more.
and then the interest will just like take it up anyways, and it won't matter.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that is a meaningless gesture that like if like just with right, I took that apart in 30 seconds, but it passed through Congress. Why? Why is that the case? Why did no one be like, well, that's not actually gonna work. Why? Because they had
Well,
the votes
bro, I mean, what are
and
we
it
talking about? There's so many things I feel like you could say that about. And I think it's,
it
we
was
get
an
into
easy
just human
example.
error, bro. Like everybody is so caught up in what's happening like directly in front of them that they can't
Yeah.
zoom out and just see like big picture what's going on.
Well, you know what I'm
Dude,
saying?
I
Like,
tell you, I heard this in I think it was, I'm taking an investing class, but
uh-huh.
what the guy said was like political candidates run and create platforms for what is going to make them likable over the next 4 years. They don't care about like the actual
Yeah,
like
no shot.
overall, state of the country long term.
Yeah, none.
But
It's like we're voting for these people to be like, hey, maybe that won't work because of the two reasons that I just said. What, you got enough votes, so you're gonna push it through to like look like you did something. So people who are sitting there like, yeah, he gave us free $10,000. It's like
but
what are
you will
we
now spend on gas and food and
yeah, it's like what are we doing?
yeah.
What are we doing? So using Tate as the example, it's like we have to interact with the ideas as their own thing, not as a part of the person. Like
Yeah.
you and I
Yeah.
can play with ideas. I can play around with the idea that Andrew Tate is super smart and like he is successful. People
Yeah.
might not agree, but that's also just an idea that somebody could play around with. It's not like I don't want to embody Andrew Tate. That's not a good idea. You know what I'm saying? But you can like there's ideas that like interact with the world that you can like think of and like the term thought experiment exists for a reason, basically. So I don't know.
No, that's a good point, man. That's a good sentence. The word thought experiment exists for a reason.
Yeah, ideas are there to be interacted with.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's getting late. Any last nickels?
Oh man, so many. I feel like we talked about a lot, but we also there's so much more to talk about, man.
I
I mean,
know. Go through one. Maybe we. I don't know. You look tired, but we can go through maybe what one more,
yeah, I'm
one
good.
more subject. What you got?
Um, let's see. Growth is big, patterns are big. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of like just what is a good subject to get into. because social media obviously is important that we got into growth and consistency. I mean, honestly, one thing that I've been working on and growing with a lot has been like women and relationships. And
Hmm.
I think that would be cool to talk with you about just because you've been in a long-term one,
Sure. Yeah, go on that.
obviously.
Go on that, bro.
Yeah, man. So, you know, eh, one thing that I guess I've been playing with a lot. So I don't know how much I've talked to you about it, but since I moved basically moved to Florida, and I like the sexual anxiety, busted through it, had a very eventful like first year down here. And one thing I realized, yeah, after it all was just that like sex does not fill the void that like you think it does. And I guess and I'm glad that like I guess I've kind of realized this because dude, I've literally seen I've met men down here, very successful guys, of like 60 plus years of age, and it's like they're still getting tied up by women. And it's like there's just a lot of like eye-opening stuff and growth that I think it's important for men to do just to like not get like that. And one, I guess, thing that I've been thinking about that I was going to mention was yeah, this idea of focusing on yourself. First of all, I feel like whenever anyone says focusing on myself, it just means I'm not getting in a relationship. But I think what is strange to me about that is like that doesn't mean you're focusing on yourself. It just means like you're not dating. There's truly a difference. But I guess I've been working a lot on just awareness and like evaluating my thoughts and feelings when I become interested in a girl, you know? And it's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think your point about focusing on yourself is 100% accurate. I
Yeah.
think right now I'm in my own relationship. We I use the analogy, how can you fill somebody else's glass if yours is not full? So you gotta be always striving to be the best that you can be. So like you both can grow together, and then it like pushes everything up.
Of course.
Um, to your point about being conscious about your thoughts and feelings when you become interested in somebody, that's very important as well. Because I remember times in college where I'd be like, it would be nice to be in a relationship and this person is interested. But it's like, am I interested in the person or am I interested in the
Mm,
relationship and or like the idea of that person? Like, what are they
yeah.
actually? Do they actually have this truckload of red flags that are like coming through? Are you actually going to interact with them and enjoy it? Like, are you actually compatible or is she just cute? Like all those things you start to wonder. And that was also why I think when I first met Jenna, I was like, yep, job done.
Yeah.
Um, because I had started to, like you said, do those things. So I think that's super important that you've realized that as well.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. It's just like you're saying, man, it's interesting because there's so many little knickknacks that like go into that. It's like, okay, she's like filling a void for me. Is this as I get a Tinder notification? Um uh um and it's like where's the feeling coming from, you know? And one thing I realized too is how much instant gratification like has been, at least for me, like a struggle in the past. Being worried about is she texting me back, in a
Hmm.
reasonable amount of time, and she texted me back in this much time. Like, what does that say about her interest levels? Like, I think as men, I was reading this book called The 3% Man, very interesting book. Because I feel like there's a lot of like men's relationship and like romance books out there that are come off kind of sexist, but I do rock with his book because it does have some really solid points in there. But he says like
See,
one issue
look, you're interacting with the ideas of the book, not the book as a whole. We can do that with people also.
facts.
All right, keep going.
Facts, huge facts. Um, but in the book, he mentions that men, a lot of times, we have this issue where we always want to be secure in like the woman's feelings of us. Like we always have to know that she is still interested and she's still into us. And how does that play out? It plays out in, how we text her and always waiting to see like when she hits us back or like things like that. And it's interesting to the more conscious and aware I can be with that and say like, okay, like those moments where I am stressing about it or I am like thinking about a woman and I can kind of catch myself. It's like any normal moment where you like become aware and very conscious for a minute. It's like, wait, why am I doing this? Why do I believe that my value as a human being comes from this at all? It does,
Mm.
you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and it's been very helpful to do that.
Yeah. To that point, is your value as a human, like to our point about being secure in yourself and who you are, that takes care of that part. The
Yeah.
point about the texting thing, dude, I remember in college, I was like, oh, she's te not texting me back in like 5 minutes, and I have people tell me like, well, if she didn't do it in 5 minutes, you have to text back in six, and it's like these are the dumbest, stupid, most trivial games that like induce. It's so stressful that
Mhm.
like you're in class like worrying like fucking pay attention, bro, and like talking to myself, and it's like, nah, but what if like, and so once you stop worrying about that, it just become and you just instead of tying your worth to like, am I gonna be like, does this woman want to have a relationship with me? Once you kind of not don't care, but once you're secure enough in yourself that you can be like, yeah, that's fine, and move on. That's when it's like to like everything else, all the other things will just start to come like it's so much. I cannot stress the importance of this enough just in life to be secure in who you are because it takes so much of the stress away. Like for example, do you remember I would sweat a lot, like all the time, armpits would sweat all the time. I got this thing called sweat block and it helps. But then like after that, I became more like just secure, and it's a very superficial thing. But I had to like look myself in the mirror, be like, all right, fuck, I got to do something about this because I can't wear shirts that aren't black. Like it was horrible, even if it was cold outside. Um,
Yeah.
and it still happens like in different like that's my body's like fight or flight mode. So like sometimes this is really annoying. This is like a super tangent, but like sometimes when I'm at the barber, like I go to like this Vietnamese place and they do a super good job normally. But sometimes if I'm like, hey, can you do this instead of that? And they like don't understand, my body is like, you fucked up. And I'll start to sweat. And then they'll be like, oh, are you hot? And it's like,
That makes it
no.
worse.
Yeah, it does. Right. And so it's something that like you have to own it. And that's one that I'm still working on because I don't really know how to deal with that. But like I'm super pale. I own that. I just it just is. To be self-conscious about it creates another level of stress, right? You go to the beach and everybody's like, "Oh, you're so pale, like we don't even need the sun anymore, blah blah blah." Right? Heard all the jokes before. So I make them first because I know it's true and it's a part of me that I can't change. I don't plan on like I'm not gonna go get spray tan or whatever because I don't just look like an orange and that's not fun either. That would be like I'd look like Ross from Friends, bro. It would be horrible.
Nice.
Um, but you own it and like I'm just secure in it and it's so much less stressful. Like when I was in high school, I would not want to take my shirt off, not because I was not in shape or whatever, because I was worried about people making fun of me. Like once you just the stress just melts away and it's so much like genuinely, it's like all so many of those stresses have just melted away and it's been honestly amazing. Like to be able to reinvent myself in this way, like
That's
I don't know.
beautiful.
I don't know. It's just I cannot highly like recommend highly enough like going through that inner battle with yourself to figure out like what you got to work on and
Yeah.
then or like things that you're insecure about and then just kind of facing them head on because once you do that, like you go through that difficult patch when you're dealing with it, but then afterwards, like it's gone. And like if you need therapy to do it or whatever, like, but yeah, I don't know. That's what I would say. It's just like to that point, and it just every like to relate it back to what you were talking about, then everything else just kind of
falls into
falls
place.
falls into place. You don't stress as much, and then also I think it helps when you just like when you actually like somebody and you know they're not filling a void because you're secure in you, then you don't have to worry about is she filling a void? Am I just looking at
Yeah,
like the idea of her? Then you because you're like, no, I know I'm good with me and I actually like her. And then you can pursue and you don't have to guess and you don't have to worry and all the stresses of like is am I interested? Is she not interested? And like all these things like gone.
yeah, yeah. You're right, man. I feel like it does just tend to fall into place when it's right. But you make a great point. I mean, the more that I have worked on that, become more secure in myself, I feel like the more at peace I've been, when it comes to that aspect of life. It's kind of coincided with like real estate,
Hmm.
because I feel confident having something that I'm working towards and I'm passionate about. And, it's just, you just become more in alignment with yourself when you give yourself opportunities to fulfill promises that you make to yourself.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm totally with that.
Yeah, man. That's cool. And it goes with everything, right? And there's always going to be bad days. Always going to be bad days. But
Yeah.
you gotta know deep down that you put in the work and you put in the time and it'll pass. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
people be like, "Oh, today this and that it sucked and I couldn't do." It's like they'll go. Remember the last time you had a bad day and then you felt happy again later? Like it'll
Hmm.
go. You're good.
Yeah.
You're good, man.
Yeah.
Just go. Life is full of it.
Yeah,
Life is
man.
full of all that stuff, bro.
Reflection and like being it's so interesting, like being really honest about what I know I need,
Hmm.
like so I smoked weed like I was smoking pretty consistently, since I moved down here. And then for about a month, I just kind of like didn't buy any, and like I
Hmm.
would, sometimes go for. I was never been like an insane like pothead. I
Yeah.
smoked consistently, but I was never like a pothead like 3 blunts a day. Like I had to be high all the time. Like that was never it. But so I went like a month last month, um, and I didn't really smoke in very much at all. Just if friends did sometimes, but I didn't have any in my house. And then this past month, I got some again, and I was doing it again. But like a few days ago, I did some yoga. Like I did hot yoga for like 90 minutes. It's
Hmm.
incredible. I love doing it. I need to start doing it more. Um, and then so today I just flushed my weed down and I also been meditating a bit more recently because I just realized like that weed is it's just a temporary fix kind of thing, but it honestly just like I know deep down that it's not a plus.
Hmm.
Meditation plus, hot yoga plus, like mindfulness plus, 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 plus. But because like those are the things that truly align us, and like center us, I feel like, at least for
Yeah.
me. But then you have the things that don't, and it's interesting, just like you're saying with those bad days we have. I think a lot of times we can look at those and say, like, what have I actually done today that like is gonna keep me in check? I've noticed for me, I get a lot more intimate when I'm kind of having downer patches or times that I want more out of myself. Those are the times that I end up getting more into my meditation and like reading and stuff like that.
Yeah. And with those bad days, you take a small win, right? You're feeling down in the morning. You're like, all right, well, I'll get this one workout in, I'll do this one thing, and then like I can know that I got my small W today. Still feeling a bit down, but it's all right. We'll like we move, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. No, that's exactly it, and it's just about like I don't know. I've been around just so much great content and people. I feel like I've learned so much recently, but it's about understanding the people who succeed are the ones who can still take the small W's on the bad days. It's not if anybody can succeed when everything's great. Anybody can succeed when everything's awesome. But the people who, when things are down and things are crappy and they can still find a way to kind of dig through it and get through the day and get done like what they need to get done. Like those are the people. That's where the compound effect, comes into play,
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing it even when you don't want to do it. Those days when everybody else doesn't want to do it, they're not going to.
No.
But you can. That's what's going to set you aside, set you apart.
Yeah, bro. That's a great place to end. Came back full circle.
Hell
Compound
yeah.
effect, everything. Plug your socials real quick.
Zane the Realtor, everybody. Zane the Realtor. Just Zane Burk on YouTube. But if you look up Zane the Realtor on YouTube, you'll see me. But Zane the Realtor on Instagram.
There you go. Links will be in the description. Dude, always a pleasure, man.
Always a pleasure. It's always a great time. World XP. Everybody, yeah, at World XP podcast. He's teeing up.
Dude,
EJ
got
going
to.
off.
I feel like what's wild is the last tidbit, but the curve of like people still watching at like 10, 15 minutes like goes. Like all the best nuggets were at the end. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll put in the comments if you listened all the way to the end.
Yeah, drop a comment.
And then if you put a comment because you listened to the end, DM me and I'll ship you a World XP soccer shirt. There we
That's pretty
go.
fire, y'all. Y'all
Yeah,
better
there
get
we
on
go.
that.
I don't know. We'll see. If anyone does it, I'll be stunned. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll do
You don't count. I told you right
it.
now. Hey, if you want one, actually, shoot me a message. I'll get one down there for you. I'll ship like a couple down for like your real estate team, right? It's more cost efficient for me to ship like 5 or 10 down than just
That'll be
one.
fun.
Like I shipped one to Brandon in Nashville.
Mhm.
$15 shipping, bro, for one shirt. It's half the cost of the shirt.
Yeah,
Like I
you
was
might
like,
you might
what
as well
is
just
this, man?
send
I
the
was
whole
like, what
freaking
is
thing.
this? Right? He like me and him been helping each other out with different things, so like he paid for it. But I was like, bro, what is this?
Yeah, silliness, man.
But yeah,
Shipping.
if you want, if actually, you should actually do that. Like, go to like the guys on your team and be like, "Hey, do you guys want some of this stuff?" And I'll ship like 5 or 10 down, and then I'll eat the shipping cost just because it'll help to have the merch out there. So,
Yeah, bro.
yeah, we'll chat about that later. All
For
right,
sure.
this was the most unofficial ending to a podcast ever. Zane the Realtor on Instagram, World XP Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.
Peace.